Welcome back, everybody. My name is Grace, or Gibby, whatever you prefer, and today I'm here with my video on the Golden Giftbox Exchange crossover event from just recently, 2023, February. Now, I wanted to wait a couple days to make this video, first off, so that I could think about the items more. Second off, see some people play test them, see about bugs and interactions, and I did some testing on my own. What you're looking at now is a complete list that I just put up as a screenshot. This is all the items that returned and are new, and this is just a screenshot of the forums. So those are all the items that came back and were released. Just as well as like a general note, I'm going to be very critical of this release and poke at all the bad points that I see and consider like problems. But this has been a pretty great release. I think the developers, everyone on the staff did a great job, mechanics-wise, art-wise, pretty much everything. There was only one bug that soft-locked the game, so that's 10 out of 10 release for AQ. Jokes aside, in the background footage for the rest of this video, which I just put on, this is just me playing a fully defensive beast build. I was just testing out the Mosquito Pet and Guest. I haven't played a Beastmaster in ages. I forgot Foam Finger. I forgot other boosting tools. I had the wrong Neko, like Soul, no drop. It was a bit of a mess, and the Mosquito Guest apparently was taking double upkeep sometimes because it was bugged. But we made it through. Only had to drink one health potion. Also, just in general, I plan to make a video specifically on the Kasoma Pet and Guest later on. But otherwise, I don't have specific plans to record videos about specific items. If you want a specific video idea, please suggest them to me in the comments or on Discord or wherever. I'll be happy to make a video if I can think of doing something interesting or if you give me a good idea. But the items I bought are Quad Mod, Invincible Heart, Time Killer, the Mosquitoes, the Pride Lord Guest, and the Kasoma Companions. I could buy some more rare boxes, but I don't want to spend more ultra rares. So I'm quite low on those. And by quite low, I mean, unfortunately, broke. Okay, so what you're looking at now is the schedule that I have in mind for this video. Now I'm going to talk about the items, then I'm going to talk about some tiering issues, but with some of the items like rare versus common versus ultra rare, and what I think are mistakes by the staff. I'm going to talk about Illustrious Savior, its problems and a potential rework, and I'm going to talk about Powercreep with this release, and my overall thoughts and my tier list of the items. But before I get into the video, I want to show a screenshot of Gwen's tier list, which is found on the forums. I'll link it in the description. But I don't agree with everything about the list, but it's well written and informative. So if you're not going to watch this whole long ass video, I recommend you go check that out. Gwen's a great community resource, has some strong opinions on the game, useful opinions. Again, I don't agree with everything in the list, but it's a solid place to start with. There is some misinformation in the discussion below the list, which is a little odd. But anyways, ignoring that, the list itself is great. Yeah, but aside from that, I'm going to just get right in. So we're moving on from Gen's tier list, and let's get into the returning items, and then the new items. Before I start though, just so you know, I might make some mistakes. I did research all the items ahead of time. I tried to find info subs where possible to make sure I had the right information, but there was just a lot to cover. I probably made some mistakes. So to prep for that, I'm going to have a section in the top of the description where I'm going to write out corrections on things that I said with timestamps. So look out for that if you're curious, or if you think I made a mistake, just check that section at the top of the description so you can fact check what I said. Okay. Without further ado, let's get into it. Seraphim and Prometheus are both ultra rare armors, and they aren't too notable. Prometheus is especially weak. It has a weak stat boosting effect, maxing out at unreliably 45 for Dex and Int per turn, but it averages out on like 22. And a bad hyposalinate skill it also has. Wouldn't recommend it under pretty much any circumstances, as of now. Seraphim has a weird charge up light spell skill. It seems okay, but not great. and it also has a global quick cast accuracy boost. That's its best feature. It's sort of like a substitute for New Year's surprise. For the weapons, I'll just list all of the returning items. Steampunk Love Bow is a simple harm bow, and it's a rare box. Maw of Chaos is a iffy dark weapon that you can use to boost attacks, skills, or spells of dark element, but it's weaker than all other kinds of boosts from other sources. But it can be stacked with those boosts even if you unequip the weapon after. So it has a use, but I wouldn't really use it unless you really want to use Dark Nukes because it's an ultra rare box. So not really worth it. It's like a 10% boost maximum. Um, Legion Spawn Bonker is a clone, an ice clone of the Terminus Twin Maul. So it has a paralyze and a boss damage boost toggle effect, which is good, but it's also 20 proc in an ultra rare box. So since you have a free to play alternative, I wouldn't recommend this unless you have boxes to spare. The Grave's End weapons are simple Earth Dark compression weapons, not really worth an ultra rare. And Infinitive Staff is the champion of the returning items. It's a rare box, and it greatly restores mana or SP if it's in magic or ranged form, respectively. And the damage restored is based off of damage dealt. So if you use an LE locked armor attack, you heal a ton of resources. It's probably the best gift box item all around. Maybe that's a hot take, but it's up there. It's just incredibly powerful. It is likely to get nerfed eventually, but have fun with it while it lasts, honestly. And it's only a rare box. Okay, so for shields, we have the Frost Titan shield and the Void Awakening wall. Frost Titan is an insane dodge lash shield, and it's also pure dodge if you want. It has two toggles, one for dodge lash, one for pure dodge. 10 out of 10 if you run a dodge build, and it's only a rare box. Void Awakening Wall is a shield with a pure damage fire skill, which is not notable unless you're doing something cheesy or want the full set bonus with the Void Awakening armor. And this shield is also a rare box. I'll talk about the Void Awakening armor in a little bit. We have Call Bloodhawk and Randor for guests and pets. Randor is just terrible. It's a fire ultra rare pet that does 10% extra damage to dragons and can toggle to harm if they have a low fire resist. It's just terrible. Don't even buy it. Don't even look at it. Also looks ugly as hell. No offense to whoever drew it, but listen. All right. Anyways, Bloodhawk P is a fire guest, and it's also an ultra rare, and it has a weird charge system. I'm not going to go in depth, but it has the ability to do a one-turn nuke that disables it for the rest of the fight. And if you use it early in the fight, it does more damage than if you use it later in the fight. It can hit extremely high numbers, 5.5 times normal guess damage if you charge it, and 4 times normal guess damage if you don't, but it can only do it once per battle. But in general, it's just a weird fire guest. The unique nuking mechanic is cool. I honestly wanted to buy it, but I don't have the ultra rares to spare. But it's not like meta. I wouldn't say get it unless you want to do a cool showcase about guest nuking. Okay, so finally for some bangers in the returning items. The Void Awakening armor, Skull and Pet and Guest, in the Void Awakening Skull, Pet and Guest, and the Time Killer spell. The armor is a neutral armor with an LE locked attack to fire, and has a low chance of either paralyzing or fearing depending on the shield you're using, but that's not really important. Its main draw is its strong LE locked attack, although it's not FO, so it's losing out on a little bit of LE comp as well as some pure damage from neutral to FO, but it's still quite powerful. The Pet and Guest toggle to either do damage and restore SP based off damage dealt, or spend their turn creating a chi shield, which drains your SP instead of your HP when you take damage. The chi shield is actually bugged to not be as strong as it should be, but it's plenty powerful as it is, so it's extremely potent. Both effects get LE comp if you use the full set bonus with the armor and shield, which is huge. It lets you be immortal with chi shields against fire monsters. It's extremely strong. The armor is pretty okay alone, but extremely powerful with the full set for defensive purposes and offensive purposes. The armor, Pet and Guest are ultra rares, and the shield, as I said, is a rare box. Time Killer is a quick cast spell, which has SP and MP varieties that gives you 2 times hypercrit, so 2x hypercrit, and a small amount of luck. It's quick cast and stackable, which first of all makes it great, and second of all, it synergizes really well with some other hypercrit sources. The most famous ones are Lust and Envy. Um, but it synergizes so well, and it's a quick cast source of hypercrit, so that you can crunch the numbers on using this weapon and this armor and this item, and then get a 100% crit chance really efficiently. And it boosts your luck, so your crits hit harder. It's just an amazing tool. Given that hypercrit is extremely strong right now, probably the strongest tool that the player has because it buffs everything about your gameplay. It's probably one of the best spells in the game. Definitely pick it up if you intend on using hypercrit at any point and or have ultra rares to spare. Okay, that is all the returning items. So next I'll move on to the new items. So I'm going to just start with some of the weapons, some of the new weapons. Rainbow's End is a common box, and it's a ranged light spear. Loses out on 25% of its damage to inflict a power 2.5 light burn for 2 turns. It's nothing special. I think most fully offensive rangers would rather run a pure damage option or a click skill option like Zakia's Spear over this. Probably like it's an average weapon. I like it's a common box. It's a nice gap filler, but nothing special. Shadow Flame Glaive is a rare box, and it's a ranged dark spear that loses 35% damage to inflict a dark burn at power 3.5. The burn is stronger than the other spear, but it requires higher hit count to be stronger since the duration is equal to hit count, capped at 4 hits. So it can be a 4-turn power 3.5 dark burn, but to my knowledge there aren't too many high hit count ranger armors, which makes it weaker. It's still a solid option. I don't know if most rangers will run it over Infinitive Staff or a pure damage option, but it definitely has some synergies with other burns. I could see it being used if people figure out a good way to utilize the hit count. Staff of Inversion is a rare box containing a magic light staff with a -5 bonus to hit lean, and you can click it to toggle to gain a -15 BTH lean in addition. It's a clone of the Mystic Troll Club, but light, which overall multiplies damage by 1.3x, so 130% damage multiplicative, because it's a bonus to hit lean rather than an additive bonus. In theory, it's a great high damage option, even if you do like offset the accuracy, which is a downside. It is magic. Most mages don't use raw attacks to do damage. You'd have to use a weapon-based skill with it, which is a big weakness. The most interesting use, I think, is going to be using non-elemental weapon-based skills, because if you want to do high damage, you'll use an elemental weapon-based skill because it's just more efficient and better in most cases. But so non-elemental weapon-based skills will be like Beast Form or War's Legacy armor or that one Samurai armor in the Ultra Rare GGB. And that's the only situation where the light element would matter, and you couldn't just use the normal Troll Club instead. I wouldn't use it for element locked skills again because you can just use the Troll Club if the element is already locked. It's the same weapon, just a different element. So if you're gonna buy this item, you're gonna want to use it for Beast Form or for a not element locked weapon based skill. There's no other uses for this, so I think it's quite poor. Although technically it's the highest damage option for pure light damage for mages. Interestingly, warriors could also use the Master Fighter armor with this weapon and use it as like a berserk light skill, because the fighter armor locks to melee. But like I don't see that happening realistically. Rangers could do the same thing, but I don't think there are any range skills that follow weapon element, or at least good ones. So really narrow use case. Kind of an overrated rant for this item, but really narrow use case. Probably don't pick up Staff of Inversion. The Zervana Arsenal is there are 3 weapons. They're each rare, and they're a set of energy weapons that are accurate with a +7 bonus to hit lean. You can switch between the types in the item upgrader. Not right now, unfortunately. They are bugged to not be able to switch between. And the art was all the same on release, which is kind of a downer, like half the fun is looking at the art, in my opinion, but, well, not half the fun. Anyways, they don't do anything special, except that you can click on them to remove bleed. At first for free, and then for a small SP cost. It's an extremely niche ability. I might get one just for the Saphira challenge fight, but there's almost nothing that bleeds the player. So, like, bleed is an extremely rare status that monsters use. I wouldn't recommend getting it unless you want defensive utility for like a couple fights, like maybe I don't think it even works on War Torn, but maybe Saphira, maybe like there's one old boss that bleeds you a lot. Anyways, super niche, but useful for that. The Twisted Dragonfire Sword is an ultra rare box, and it's a fire weapon that toggles between melee ranged and magic, and it has 2 SP toggles as well. You can have one or both active, and they total 25% melee, or about 95 SP. One gives 15% damage, and one gives 8.5 bonus to hit. It's a great damage option, but it does cost an ultra rare, and it's only a little bit better than a Bloodblade, so I wouldn't say it's worth it. It is pretty much best in slot for pure fire damage, though, counting accuracy boost, so keep that in your calculations if you're thinking about the item. So next up is the Snake Master Strike spell, which is a rare box and a dark spell. The dark spell is overcharged. I think it costs 915 SP or so, or MP, sorry. I think there is a SP version as well. But anyways, so it has a higher base cost, and it gives 4 times hypercrit. Then it spends half its damage on a poison and half its damage on pure damage. The poison, pure damage, and hypercrit don't synergize that well together, although the hypercrit does act before the damage. If you're going to use a hypercrit damage spell, you want the hypercrit to go into full damage rather than half of it being a damage over time. So it's not perfect, but that being said, it's much more accessible hypercrit since it's only a rare box rather than an ultra rare. I wouldn't get it if you don't have other sources of hypercrit, or unless you really want hypercrit and don't want to spend ultra rares. That being said, hypercrit is sort of like a janky status because if you crunch the numbers and like do this and that and use niche items, you can get to 100% crit in like weird additive and multiplicative ways. So it's possible that someone will figure out a way to use a 4 times multiplier to get a 100% crit rate in a really efficient way, but I haven't seen anyone doing any calculations to make it work yet. But if someone does figure out a way to use this spell to get a 100% crit rate in an efficient way with like maybe like a dark lucky strike bonus weapon or armor or something, it could end up being much stronger with that synergy. The Illustrious Savior of Battleon set is 3 items, a rare weapon, a rare shield, and an ultra rare armor. Each of them have a trigger against boss monsters, or any monster with power 2 or greater, which is like a back-end indicator of how strong the monster is, and it can't be seen visually in game, but just know it'll work on at 99% of all bosses. The sword triggers to deal plus 20 damage, and it does minus 5% damage as a down trigger. The shield gets plus 12 MRM, with a minus 3 MRM down trigger, and the armor can toggle either between damage or MRM, like with the same way as the sword and shield, or if you have the full set, it activates both at once. As of right now, it's quite bad because it doesn't have a skill, it just does maximum 40% damage as a full set, and has some higher defenses, but I have a section later in the video with some recommendations for a change. We got 2 new miscs, the Titan's Mug and the Quad Mod. Titan's Mug is a fire defensive misc that gives 35 endurance and luck, and gives a base 10% damage boost to all elements. It then gives up to 23.5% more damage, depending on how many times the monster hit you last turn, capping at 4 hits for the full boost of 33.5% damage. I've thought about this misc a lot, and to be honest, I don't really know how to tell how useful or strong it'll be. It doesn't give main stat, which is rough. It gives endurance, which is rough for an offensive misc. And it defends against an element, so if you want pure offense, it's more expensive than it would need to be. So that makes it less good as a pure damage misc, in my opinion, because it gives endurance and a defensive bonus. However, its max potential damage boost is 13.5% stronger than other miscs, which is like a factor of more than 50%, which is pretty huge. The only issue is like I'm trying to think of monsters that hit you 4 times. It's limited. It's limited. It's not like they don't exist, but it is limited. If you get hit only 2 times, it's a little bit stronger than a damage misc. So it's just rough to think about. Like I'll have to see it in use a lot to really know how good it'll be. And even then, maybe I won't know. I think it's a very solid misc, but I don't feel confident ranking it at the moment. So you'll see on my tier list, I put a question mark next to it, and I put it in 2 categories. But anyways, it's a good misc, but it's just such a unique mechanic. Like it's hard to know how good it is. For quad mod though, it's much more simple because it's an exact clone of Quad Force, an old rare misc that could give you 250 of any stat, minus luck and endurance. And it also gives 50 luck and plus 20 damage to all elements passively, as well as 50% light resistance. The cost for taking 1 stat to 250 and the upkeep of the misc is over 300 SP. So it's very impractical to use if you're limited in resources, but I think it's super fun to use. Like you can have every stat 250 with this misc, which is just dope. Even if it's a little impractical in like difficult fights. And it enables a ton of like really unique strategies. So if you have boxes to spare, I really recommend picking this up. It's just so unique. We got 2 more clones of rare items, and both of them are also ultra rare boxes. Invincible Heart is a 1-for-1 clone of Invincible Star. It has 3 options. You can choose either MP or SP cost, and it gives a 33%, 66%, or 99% LE shield for 1 turn. And depending on what you use, it has a 2, 3, or 4 turn cooldown afterwards. It's extremely powerful as quick cast LE shield, and although the max defensive shield is usually overkill, it's just an extremely powerful spell to have. I highly recommend it. I think this is one of the top pickups. Quick cast LE shields are just incredibly busted. If you have Space Gauntlet, you might not need this spell because like 50% damage reduction, quick cast is already pretty strong. But you know, it's a super, super strong spell. I would definitely recommend getting this if you have the funds to get it. The second clone, or the second new clone, is the Wind Mosquito Pet and Guest, which are exact clones of the Jelly Pet, except they do wind. They deal a tiny amount of damage and then heal for a multiplier of that damage. So like it'll do, for example, 20 damage and heal for 100. It's also the same against a 200 resistance monster or a 10% resistance monster. So you can use it against anything as long as it doesn't have negative resistances or 0. What you can do also is use LE Vulnerability to increase the damage of the pet, which will greatly increase the healing. Basically, if you use 150% LE Vuln, the pet will heal an extra 50%. It's just like that. Otherwise, they're about 5% stronger at base than pure healing pet and guests, and the reason is because they have to land their hits, so they're a little bit stronger to compensate, even though they do a tiny bit of damage. They're both really good. They heal all 3 resources on toggle, HP, mana, or SP, and they're just extremely powerful for sustain. If you don't have full pet and guest boosting stats for accuracy, they'll be much less reliable, but they toggle to heal all 3 resources. They heal a huge amount. They can be boosted with LE Vuln. They can be boosted with normal pet and guest boosting strategies. They're just extremely useful. So I really recommend getting them if you're able to. I recommend the pet over the guest because you can use Hypercrit with the pet, and you can use Werepire, Werebats with the pet as well. So that's just my take. Both of them are great though. The Kazoma pet and guest are ice beetle creatures that eat any defense boost on the player to greatly increase their damage. Up to plus 200% damage for both if you eat the full amount, which is 72 blocking for the guest and 48 blocking for the pet, spread over any duration. Keep in mind that this duration also counts the turn 0, So a 1 turn plus 60 MRM buff is actually worth 120 rather than just being worth 60. If that's complicated, don't worry about it. I'm making a video on it in the next couple days or a week. I think these pets and guests are going to be super potent offensively, as they vastly outcompete other premier ice pet and guest options for pure damage, and we have a variety of quick cast and efficient sources of defense boost that can be utilized to boost them every turn as long as you have resources. The boosts are pretty expensive, so you won't be able to boost them every turn in like a difficult boss fight, but they're just really strong and we have a lot of access to defense boosts, so I think these are going to go hard when people start to figure out synergies. Okay, so we've got two more items. The Mindbreaker Shield is an ultra rare. I don't know if I'm. Backtrack. The Kasoma Pet and Guest are rare boxes. I think I forgot to say that. Okay. The Mindbreaker Shield is an ultra rare energy shield with a quick cast skill which inflicts a minus 29 blind and a minus 9 defense loss, both for 2 turns. The save is intellect versus intellect at a minus 20 save, so you're very likely to inflict it. Intellect isn't too common with monsters. If you don't run it and the monster does, you'll need to use some status potency. But since it's quick cast, you should be okay because you can go into your status potency setup and then switch back out later. It's an extremely powerful dodge shield because the blind is quick cast and it's minus 29. Like Jesus Christ, dude. It's almost guaranteed even through boss boost if you stack enough potency, and it's quite usable without it. I did a bunch of number crunching in the Discord the other day. It's really good. It's just really good. It's also quick cast universal defense loss if you're interested in it and you don't have time gauntlet. Okay, so last but definitely not least are the Pride Lord Pet and Guest. They are rare boxes, which is insane, and I'll get into that. And they're clones of the Spotter Drake pet, but for fire. They have a plus 50 damage mode, paid for by an SP cost, and they also have a status potency and ice damage reduction mode. The status potency is 12 for the pet and 18 for the guest, and the ice resistance is minus 20% for the pet and minus 30% for the guest. The status potency is super strong. You can use it on every quick cast effect, and you can use it on other effects too. It's just amazing, especially the guest. It's like a new maximum level of potency we can get with the guest. We've never had a guest potency slot before. And also I think they're both best in slot for pure damage for fire pets and guests. And they're rare boxes too. So just everything about these is great. If you want to save rare boxes, if you're stingy like I am, only get the guest because Spotter Drake is like pretty much the same as the pet. And by pretty much the same, I mean the same, just a different element. Okay, that was a ton of information. Make sure to check the description, the correction section, to see if I made any mistakes, since that was a lot of monologuing and I might have slipped up. Next up, I want to talk about item tiering issues and, from my perspective, what I think those issues are. So, to be honest, I think they fumbled some of the item tiering. The way I see it, the Pride Lord Pet and Guest are 100% powerful enough to be ultra rares. They outcompete literally everything for pure damage, and they also have a super strong compression for status potency and defense. And the Kasoma Pet and Guest as well. They are very resource intensive, but they are leagues stronger than every other ice damage option. As well, I think as it is, the Illustrious Savior of Battleon armor is not at all worth an ultra rare. I would say it's not even worth a rare. It could be a common box. And it's really a shame because the art is kind of dope, and it won't get appreciated very much as is, because no one's going to spend an ultra rare on the armor as it is now. I have recommendations for buffs, but that's my opinion on release. I think it should not have been released as an ultra rare if, respectfully, they were going to make it dog water trash. Like, oh my god. Anyways, moving on. The Dragonfire Blade, I also think is overvalued. I don't really think it's an ultra rare weapon because it's barely better than Urigiri, which is from a common box. That take is a little complicated because you could pretty fairly say that one, SP costs are nicer than the costs that Urigiri pays, and two, Urigiri is the strongest common box by a mile. So it's like they made a mistake putting Urigiri there, which is both those are true. But in my opinion, it's just silly that as it is, an ultra rare box is like 5% better than a common box. Again, different elements, but same type of weapon. So, overall, I think they put some extremely strong items in the rare tier, some mid items in the ultra rare tier, and it's not a huge issue, but I think it might cause issues for ranking future items. Like, if they're going to make another fire pet, will it have to be better than the Pride Lords and in the ultra rare tier? Or if they're going to make another ice pet, will it have to be even stronger than the Kosoma pets, which are already the strongest? Like, it causes some issues for designing future items, in my opinion. So next up is the Illustrious Savior set. As it is right now, this set is cheeks. The weapon is a less often useful Bloodblade. The shield is a worse Logos shield, and the armor has nothing special going for it. Right now, the only thing it does is being a super efficient damage and defense option against bosses. And when I say super efficient, I mean 0 resource input. You get 40% damage and 24 MRM for no upkeep, which sounds really strong, and it is, if you could use it to actually do something other than click the attack button. I think getting those bonuses for free as a trigger is a great idea, and if you could do something in the armor other than click attack, I think it would feel really good to have those like free bonuses coming in from the trigger. But you don't, because all you can do is click the attack button. I think there are 2 good solutions which can solve this problem and maintain the identity it has of being a low resource cost armor that gets bonuses against bosses. First, you could simply give the armor a weapon-based skill. A weapon-based skill would do double base attack damage. It would get 40% bonus damage from the weapon and armor, and it would have a low SP cost because it would get LE comp to cost. Because that's how it works. The armor has pretty solid LE comp if I eyeballed it right, and I'll go into that later. But that would make it pretty good. You'd have a low SP cost, high damage skill, and it would be extremely efficient offensively and defensively against bosses. It wouldn't have the highest hitting nukes, but it would be super low upkeep and super sustainable if you wanted to use boosters, miscs, maybe quick cast buff spells, stuff like that. It would be nice to have. Secondly, for an even more efficient option, you could have the armor simply get a toggle which locks the basic attack to water. Now that would give it roughly 1.65 times damage, which is the LE comp value. I think both of these solutions would still make the armor extremely resource efficient, but they would give it much more power and make it a solid, extremely efficient boss busting armor. Rai actually came up, Rai Guy or Jai Guy, on the forums. I'm going to link the post and screenshot it and put it right here. Came up with this suggestion, which you're seeing on screen. And it's pretty much the same idea that I had with a couple of like differences, and I think that's fine. You know, everybody has their own little ways they like to do things. Personally, like I would change the healing mechanic to be more like taxing cutlass, and I would put the LA locked attack not to skill level. I would keep it free, like a lot of other ones, instead of like Bloodzerker. But you know, like it's the same idea. I really like the idea, and I'd be super happy to see these exact changes or similar changes put in. Also, both of our ideas let the devs reuse the attack animation for the skill, which would save a lot of development time. So I think this is like not a hard fix to implement. I think it just needs a little push, and by little push I mean either a weapon-based skill or an LE locked attack to make it a strong armor. But that's pretty much it for the Illustrious Savior set. Power creep is something that I feel strongly about in a lot of games, and I'm pretty against power creep. And my reason for that, you know, like I used to play RuneScape. Power creep has gotten a little bit crazy in that game, in my opinion. Like they're releasing a new prayer book. Like, calm down, guys. Like piety is strong enough. Like augury is crazy, man. Like they don't need new prayers. But whatever. I'm a hater. Anyways, I'm pretty against power creep because I think it makes the game less fun. Because a lot of old items become outdated, especially with a game like Adventure Quest. You know, like old items are 90% of the game. So when those become useless, it feels kind of bad. A little bit of power creep, just fine. I think a lot of power creep is hitting Adventure Quest lately. Um, I could go through a list of examples. I plan to in a different video, but that's for another day. But that being said about power creep, I think this release is pretty much okay. The four flat out strongest items, the Pride Lords, the Mosquito, Quad Mod, and the Invincible Heart, are all clones of other items, so it's not really power creep, although it just makes the power more accessible to people who don't have rares, which I think is good. The Pride Lord and Mosquito Guest are not, well, they are clones, but they also are new because there weren't a Jelly Guest or a Spotter Drake Guest, so they are power creep. Um, but like, whatever, man. They can't use hyper crit. There's more pet boosting than there is guest boosting in general. It's like it's not too bad. I can't be too mad about it. Um, Also, they're going to make the game a ton of money with this release, which is great because I want the game to keep going. And maybe thriving is a strong word for a game with like 400 active players. But I want the game to keep thriving, and I think that selling good golden gift boxes, great way to do that. I nearly bought tokens to buy more myself. I had like just enough ultra rares to get what I wanted, which means I'll probably buy tokens later if they release new cool ultra rares. Anyways, economic release, great. Power creep, limited, great as well. Um, Probably the worst power creep offender was the Kasoma pet and guest, but whatever, it's fine. Overall, the power creep wasn't too bad with this release, which is honestly great. I think it's great for the game. We're finally getting close to the end of the video, which is fantastic because I don't know if y'all can tell my voice. Whew, could not handle this. Um, so my overall thoughts on the items, and what you're seeing on screen now in the last few seconds, is my rough tier list of where I think the items fall out. The tiers are the only factor. The like what number it is in the tier in each tier, that's not important. I couldn't like ranking a specific item that close together. Like I don't know. I think it's kind of arbitrary. Whatever you pick. Like if you ask me like is Invincible Heart better or is Kasoma better or is Pride Lord better, like on a different day I'd say a different thing. But the tiers themselves I pretty much agree with. The only things I can foresee changing my mind on are Titan's Mug, Snake Master's Strike, and maybe Shadow Flame Glaive, honestly, because a 4-turn tower 3.5 burn, it could you could do something with it. I'm not sure what, but you could do something with it. Anyways, all in all, extremely powerful release. Very good for the game economically. Very good for the game in general because I think re-releasing rares is good, man. Like quad mod, fun item. I don't care if people say it's bad. It's a fun ass item, even if it's impractical. The power creep wasn't too bad. Didn't nullify any old items. Well, nullified a couple old items, but only a couple. We'll take it. On release, only one item soft locked the game. Better than average. Let's just say that. Only a couple items are bugged. They only changed they only hotfixed one item night of release. So pretty good for the AQ team. I'm making a little bit of fun of them, but they really did a great job. Art wise, they still haven't put these Irvana Arsenal weapons individual art on. I think they're all using the same art still, but anyways, great release. Slight mistakes, slight issues, but really good release. Kasoma and the Pride Lords are huge winners of the release since they're rare boxes. A lot more people can use them. Quad Mod, Mosquitoes, Invincible Heart are just extremely strong for a variety of builds. I think the art on pretty much everything is quite good. Some of them are really cool. It sucks that the Illustrious Savior set is one of the coolest arts, but kind of cheeks. Give it an efficient skill or an LE locked attack. I swear it will be meta for warriors in the water slot at least. Maybe not for anyone else because we have Archmage Apprentice for water and Neko for water, but for warriors it'll be great. I promise you that. Yeah, let me think of what else to say. Keep making more clones of good stuff. Don't make them better clones of like the Pride Lord Guest being a clone of Spotter Drake because it's like just objectively stronger. That's my opinion. Like no power creep. I'm a hater, but do whatever. You guys are doing great. Um, some items I would love to see clones of are status ward, potency miscs for underused statuses like sleep and days. I know that's like people are gonna say days. Like, listen, if we gotta put days, potency misc, and shield, I would go off. I would go off. Um, that's a whole nother conversation. Compression defensive miscs. I would love to see some of those. Toggle between each one. Efficient, like low SP cost defensive miscs. I would love to see those as well. Mystic Retro Golden Axe. Please clone that effect for other elements. Dark first, so we can abuse it in Necro. Listen. Everybody wants it. They just don't know it yet because they haven't had the vision of using a dark item like that to restore your mana for free. Anyways, I'm a little getting off track here, but there's a whole forums page of clones that people wanted to see. Keep releasing those. You guys are doing great. Work on the class updates. In the meantime, I really want to see the mage update. I really want to see the rogue update. I really want to see the ninja update. Actually, I'm really excited for it because I've been playing around with ninja on a low level. Like you can't even do anything. That's not true, but work on the class updates. Keep releasing clones. You guys are doing great. Great release. My voice is giving out on. Oh my gosh, man. All right, I do my best. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this was a little bit fun, a little bit silly, and most importantly, informative and educational. Most important part. And I hope that I will see you in the next one. Make sure to, if you have disagreements or opinions about what I say in the comments, or what I say, please do debate me in the comments. I think it's informative to other people to get other people's opinions. Like you can see in the video, like I was getting rolled as a fully defensive Beastmaster, even with a bunch of busted gear, because I just don't play the build. So there's lots of stuff that my opinion is not that informed on. Like mages, I think I know a lot. Fully defensive Beastmasters, I know a little bit, not so much. Warriors, I know nothing. So debate me in the comments. It'll make some good discussion for people to look at and get their own opinions from. Polite debate, of course, and effective debate, not meaningless. But anyways, please do let me know if you have any disagreements, if you have any changes of opinions, especially with the tier list. And otherwise, I hope you enjoyed. Take good care of yourself. Spread some peace and love. Drink some water. Eat some healthy food. Some nice vegetables. And love yourself. Love the people around you. I will see you all later. Bye-bye.